Hey, VC, Jeff here, of course. I got a little package in the mail today. Got a little VCLT. Keep from showing all of that. Anyway, kind of know what some of these things are, but this is from Scott Waters. Got some CDs in the mail today. And then I got some other things that are kind of related that I'm going to show. But anyway, let's take a look at this. So here's what basically happened. So as most of you might know, should know, I'm sure you know, Scott Waters, graphic designer, does a lot of the work with the reissues from the labels like Rocks Records. He has his own No Life Till Metal Records, Retroactive, Girder. He does a lot of the graphics and stuff for the vinyl and CD reissues from a lot of different bands that he works with. And so he has access to a lot of this, a lot of that material. And occasionally I see him sending stuff out to people. But also, occasionally he's looking for stuff. And I'm been a long time in the music, industry and magazine writing, and have a lot of stuff laying around. So at times he'll reach out and say, "Hey, do you have anything by this band that I could, take a use for an upcoming release?" And recently he did that with, I guess, a future coming release for this particular album. He said, "Do you have a copy of the old original CD?" And I'm like, "Sure I do." And so I sent it over to him because he wanted to do a big scan of it. And when he was sending it back, he threw in some extra CDs here. So let's get into these. All right. Now, he mentioned on we spoke, and he told me some of the stuff that's coming. So this is what I sent him, was the Leviticus live at Bobfest. So again, I assume that must have a future release coming out. All right, and then what he threw in for me, which is really nice, is, and I don't get it, I had this, but My Silent Wake, and I don't know, maybe at some point, I know I had this, and I still have it digitally, but I'm thinking at some point I must have gave it to somebody or sold it to somebody. He had a copy of that, and he sent that to me. And then My Silent Wake Unbroken, which I believe the reason I didn't buy it, because this is kind of like a best of, because I have everything they've got pretty much. So, but still willing to have it. I'm sure, it's just great to have in the collection, and he had a copy there. Okay, and next up, we got the Moeller album. Now, Grant Moeller, I'm assuming I'm pronouncing that right. I hate the fact I've been saying it like that for years, but I may be saying that wrong. But anyway, he's the vocalist for Crushing the Deceiver. Great album they put out before. I believe there's a new one coming on. But in the meantime, he went and did this solo band. Bit heavier vocally, a little more deathy feeling, I guess, at times. I've only listened to some of the clips, but I had yet to pick it up, and so he sent that along CD there. Throw that in a case and get that going here. Let's see. Yeah, there's the back of it. Death is Defeated. Oh, wow. Look at that. Everybody's wearing one of those shirts. A lot of green in there. Anyway, great stuff. And then the other one he got here is Tango Down. This was, who was this? This was, okay, yeah, this was released on Brutal Planet. Now, they also, Tango Down have, I think, at least one of their releases on vinyl that I purchased a while back, but had never picked up. They have quite a few CDs that I had not picked up, and so he had one of this one, and so he sent me this. They are, you can see that, I mean, it's a modern band, but definitely, has the sound of the old melodic metal hard rock of the 80s and 90s, late 80s, early 90s. So great stuff. I've enjoyed their stuff. I have a bunch of their stuff digitally, but now we have one of the CDs too. So, thank you so much, Scott. This is great. And we got to add to that. Now, it's funny because thinking of Scott's a big collector of buttons, and a while back, a couple years ago, I sent him a bunch of buttons I had, because I'm like, he collects and he puts them in the display cases and stuff, and I really didn't. And there was a lot of 80s bands. It's stuff that I bought actually back in the 80s when I was a teenager. Things like Def Leppard and Rat and Ozzy, and just, you go to the record stores back then, and they had that little spindle with all the little pins on it, and you just kind of bought stuff, and it was just photos that people turned into buttons. Well, the other day I went out to my music room, which hasn't been used in a while because the bands that I'm in recently practice elsewhere, but I have a room out back. It's a shed we converted to a music room. I got a drum set out there. It's kind of right now needs cleaned up. It's just become kind of a storage place, but there is still equipment out there. We just haven't used it because I haven't been in a band that's practiced here. But I have all kinds of paraphernalia out there. I have Marvel figures and old Marvel 7-Eleven cups that I used to collect, and other figures and Kiss figures, and just it used to be my toy collection for the most part. But I also had a lot of buttons out there. Now, when I since got the buttons I had a while back, they were in a box that I've been carrying around in my bedroom with other trinkets in it for decades, and I sent that. But then I went out the other day to get my drum set out because I had a gig, and I pulled all the buttons off the wall and brought them in here. So what I wanted to do is show these. Now, these are all Christian bands from back in the day, and I wanted to show the button and the related release. So this one, see if you can read this. It's called, it's your Hey Metalheads, It's Your Holy Right. Very cool. One of the bigger buttons comes from the band Holy Right, a little known. I mean, they were kind of fairly popular, I guess, in this scene back in the day. But one album, one and done. Now, the vocalist Keith Miles, back in the day, I used to talk to a lot of these bands because I was doing my own magazine, and I had a magazine that had one issue out, and it looked like this. And that's Tempest back in the day. As you may not be able to tell, but this was a dot matrix. Everything was dot matrix printer because it was the 80s. And that was basically a dot matrix font that I then took a marker and traced it to fill it in, so it's kind of generic looking. The Pendragon. So somebody along the line said, hey, Keith from Holy Right is a graphic designer. So I contacted him and I asked him, hey man, can you work me up a logo? And he said sure. And so then the next 3 issues all had a logo on it that he designed, the Pendragon. So yeah, anyway, and those are the issues I did. That one I was kind of coloring in. So great stuff. So that's the connection there. Keith did that for me many moons ago. He went on to sing for Titanic, did a couple albums, Final Acts. Great, great, great stuff. I love that stuff. All right. Next up is this little one here, Saint WOS. Saint WOS, Warriors of the Sun, which of course correlates to their first album from 84, or according to some people it was released in early 85, even though it's dated 84. Anyway, yeah, and I got some glare here. But yeah, Warriors of the Sun, Florida band, Revelation. Now, let me see, get that right. At the time this came out, they basically just had a self-release cassette. But as you probably saw in videos before, not too many months ago, just a couple months ago, it got released on, reissued on vinyl for the first time and CD for the first time. There's the vinyl. So all these years later, they finally made it. Anyway, First Strike, a band, one and done, Rock of Offense, produced by Mike Rowe of the 77s. Great album. AOG. I believe I had another button by them at some point that similar to this, but I don't seem to have anymore. But AOG, the Armor of God, that comes from the boys in Striking. As you can see, they got the Armor of God on. This was kind of their thing, their logo and everything. Might have picked that button up actually from the first. They released a 12-inch single that I absolutely fell in love with. Kind of interesting metal of the day, 80s metal stuff, but then they came out with the full album. I've mentioned this before in the past, but this was way before the days of Kickstarter, but basically you send the band money to buy the album before that so that they could fund the album, and they ended up putting your name in the liner notes. So it actually says Jeff and Veronica McCormack. So yeah, I got my name in there, and that was back in the 80s when there was no Kickstarter. Messiah Prophet. Now, I have 2 of these. Jeff, why do you have 2 of these? Because on the back of these 2, there's 2, each one has a different number, because these were issued when you were part of the Messiah Prophet fan club. And what that basically required is, I can't recall, I think you might have sent them money like every quarter, every month, or maybe it was just a one-time fee. But anyway, we got photos and stuff like that. But Messiah Prophet, Master of the Metal, this would have been the time frame that that button had come out. They had a great raw first album, Rock the Flock, and then they had this great one on Pure Metal, which is probably their most well-known that everybody knows. They did a 3rd album, which was really a different band. It was just kind of like the name, the mission, different singer and everything. But, and there wasn't much else beyond that. But they were pretty popular back in the day in the Christian metal circles. Recon. this would have been received back in the day when they actually had just a demo out, but then they did get a record deal and get signed, and this has been reissued on vinyl and CD a couple times in the past 5 or 6 years. So yeah, Recon, great stuff. Very kind of a power metal, melodic metal. Very, people compare them a lot to like Halloween, along that lines. And then this one you may recognize if you're a fan, but that is one of the early Striper buttons. It's a Striper on it, no devil. And I got that around the time I saw the Soldiers Under Command tour, probably 3, 4, 5 times in the day. So anyway, that's it. Just some fun with buttons. Call it fun with buttons. Thanks for watching, though. Thanks a lot again, Scott, for the freebies there, for the extras. Love it, love it, love it. I will see you all later. Rock on, rock hard.